Six, welcome back to the second half of lesson one. We started talking yesterday about the rise of the Greek culture, the civilization, the Greek islands. First civilization that's going to thrive on water without a major river to it. And today we're just going to continue on with what we know about them. We had the Minoans and the Mycenaeans and the Dorians that we were introduced to yesterday. Try to keep those people straight. In the order, the Minoans first, then the Mycenaeans, and then the Dorians. They ushered in that Dark Age. Today we're moving on. It says, as Greece recovered from the Dark Ages, its population increased rapidly. By 700 BC, local farmers could not produce enough grain to feed the growing population. To solve this problem, Greek communities began to send people outside the Aegean area to establish colonies. Number one in your notes. A colony is a settlement in a new territory that has close land ties back to its homeland. Okay, guys, so America used to be the 13 colonies, right? We belonged to Britain. Britain needed resources. Britain went over across and set up these colonies that we're going to start to talk about as they move on. The Greeks founded many colonies along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea between 750 and 550 BC. Greek culture spread to new areas such as southern Italy, Sicily, France, Spain, North Africa, and Western Asia. So you have number two in your notes, guys, and then you can see that here on the map. Southern Italy is right around the corner here. Sicily is the island. You're going up into the Black Sea would be here. Cruising to northern Africa, that would be this one. That would be mainly Egypt, guys. And then you can also see where they landed down here. Western Asia would be coming around the corner here to Asia Minor. And then they gave you France, which would be this stuff up here. Around the corner is Spain here. So those are the places that you can see with those arrows. The colonies traded with their parent cities on the Greek mainland. They shipped grains, metal, fish, timber, and enslaved people to Greece. In return, the Greek mainland sent wine, olive oil, and pottery to the colonies. So you got number three in your notes of the products going both ways. So you can see the benefit win-win. Greece, what do you have that you can send to us, and what do these new colonies have that they can send back in? As the Greeks began to make coins from metal, this affected their trade. So trade expanded as merchants traded money for goods rather than bartered for goods. This system increased a colony's wealth. As the demand for goods grew, artisans made more goods to meet the demand. People in different colonies specialized in making certain products. For example, in colonies where farmers raised sheep, people began to make cloth from the sheep's wool. So guys, one of the things is when we get the coins going, trade increases, because with bartering, there's always a limit. If I'm trading you chicken eggs and you're trading me grain, there's a time where you're going to say, I don't need any more chicken eggs, or I might say, I don't need any more grain. But there's never a time where I'm going to say, I don't need any more coins. I always want more money, right? So you'll produce more as long as you can trade it for coins. It just takes a system, a government usually, to set up a coin-making system that'll give us the value. That usually takes a little bit of time as they cruise through it. Continuing on, mountains and seas separated Greek communities from each other. As a result, people developed a loyalty to the community in which they lived. Communities became fiercely independent. So you have this being spread out again, guys, as these communities start to stick together because of the way they're separated from everybody else. By the end of the Dark Ages, nobles who owned large estates had overthrown the Greek kings. Across Greece, nobles ruled numerous city-states. As in Mesopotamia, the Greek city-states were made up of a town or city that was in the surrounding area. Each city-state, known as a polis, number 4, is like an independent country. Today, English words such as police and politics come from the Greek word polis. Today, sometimes you'll hear the word the metropolitan area. So you can see the root word of, guys, a city-state there. So you can see it in the words that we use today. The polis was a basic political unit of Greek civilization. At the center of each polis was a fort built on a hilltop, number 5. That hilltop fort stood on what is called the Acropolis. Athens had a very famous one. Local people could take refuge in the Acropolis when invaders attacked. The Greeks built temples on the Acropolis to honor their local gods. So if you remember yesterday, we talked about the city the king living on top of the hilltop and then surrounded by a city wall, guys, that was Acropolis. I'd build these temples up there. I'd build these big things on the top of the hill so I could see the enemies. Then we'd round it with a wall, and the people, when the city was attacked, would flee inside that up there and be protected from the locals. Outside the Acropolis was an open area called an agora, number 6 in your notes. This space was used as a marketplace. It was also an area where people could gather and debate issues. We're going to talk about this more as we go through chapter 7. The Greeks loved to sit around and talk. This is where they held their elections and chose officials, passed laws, carry out business. City neighborhoods surrounded the agora. Just beyond the city were the villages and farmlands that were also part of the polis. Because most city-states were surrounded by mountains and seas, they were usually small. Some were only a few square miles in area, while others covered hundreds of miles. By 500 BC, nearly 300,000 people lived in the city-state of Athens. That's the largest. Most city-states, however, were much smaller. Okay, so you had number 7 in your notes. They were usually small. Today in the United States, a person who is born here is considered a citizen. We owe many of our ideas about citizenship to the ancient Greeks. Number 8 in your notes. Who was a Greek citizen? Citizens were members of a political community with rights and responsibilities. 9 in your notes. In Greece, male citizens had the right to vote, hold public office, own property, defend themselves in court. In return, citizens had the responsibility to serve in the government and to fight for their polis as citizen soldiers. So we always talk about rights and responsibilities, guys. Rights is what I get, responsibilities is what I have to do back in return. So I want the right to do all these wonderful things. Great. What do you have to do? You have to serve in the government and be ready to fight as a soldier. America still does the same thing today, guys. I, as a male citizen, have to be willing to be drafted into the army. Ancient Greek citizenship was very different from ancient Mesopotamian Egypt, where most people were subjects. So in Mesopotamia and Egypt, guys, we didn't really talk about citizens because it was pretty much one owned everybody else. We were subject to them. We had to listen to their rules. They had no rights, no voice in government, and no choice but to obey their rulers. In most Greek city-states, only free land-owning men born in the polis could be citizens. So we in America like to say, I have a democracy, the citizens get to vote, okay? And the Greeks would say the same thing. When we start talking about Greece starting a democracy, guys, you got to understand their definition of, yes, citizens can vote. Well, that wasn't the vote by everybody, guys. Number 1, only half the population because it was men. Number 2, you had to be free. In other words, slavery's everywhere. You're a slave, you're not in it. Number 3, you have to also have wealth. You have to own your own land, and that's a big deal. Number 4, you have to be born in this polis. So if I was born in Sparta and I moved to Athens, they would not make me a citizen, guys, and give me those rights because I was not born there. They believed the responsibility to run the city-state was theirs because the polis was made up of their property. Some city-states later entered the requirement of owning land for a person to be a citizen. Women and children might qualify for citizenship, but they had none of the rights that went along with it. So we might consider them citizens, guys, but they didn't get the benefits that we talked about up here. Okay? And then this is the change that happens over time. Should I get rid of one of the requirements? And it's a challenge, guys. You live in America, you would say, you got to get rid of that. Why would we ever put a restriction on if you own land or not? But there's also the other side of that. If I'm a landowner and I want people making rules on paying taxes, well, I want to have a say in that because that's taxing my land. And some people would say, well, I don't own the land, so I don't care what you tax. That's not my problem. Well, okay, so then we have to decide those things. In Greece, wars were fought by wealthy nobles riding horses and driving chariots. By 700 BC, citizens called hoplites made up the city-state armies. The hoplites fought on foot. Each heavily armed soldier carried, number 1, a round shield. First of all, number 11 in your notes, but here's their equipment. They have a shield, they have a short sword, and they have a spear. During battles, rows of hoplites marched forward together, shoulder to shoulder. They raised their shields above them to protect them from the enemy's arrows. This unified formation was called a phalanx. which was also in number 11 in your notes where we talked this out. So they developed a new fighting style, guys, which was sometimes when we think about bow and arrows, we think about shooting them at a straight line. That's not how they fought in ancient times. They aimed those things into the sky. You would try to lob arrows down on people, and what you would do is you'd bring 1,000 soldiers forward. They'd all shoot 1,000 arrows into the air, and you'd hope it rained down. So you have this wall of people all with these shields. They'd all snap them up. Now the other thing that would happen with this phalanx, guys, is you have all these people shoulder to shoulder that you would literally try to push them over with your wall of shields, and everybody would just kind of push together and knock them over. And then you could stab them with the spear, or that's also why you carried a knife. I knocked this guy down. You can see he's getting it with the knife there. You can see other ones trying to fight with a spear over the top of shields. Okay. The success of hoplites came from their pride in fighting as brave warriors. That's number 12. In Athens, for example, soldiers took this oath: I will not disgrace my sacred arms, nor desert my comrade wherever I am stationed. I will observe the established laws, and whatever laws in the future may be responsibly established. If any person seeks to overturn the laws, I will oppose him. I will honor the religion of my fathers. Guys, as we go through this chapter, you're going to see even more than Athens is Sparta. Sparta is crazy on their military, and just the I am willing to fight and die for it. Our American fighting force is pretty much the same way today. They will definitely not disgrace them. In other words, our soldiers are trained, don't turn and run, fight, don't leave your comrades behind. And it's amazing how that goes, and then you have a unified mission like that. Really helps. The polis gave Greek citizens a sense of belonging. This is similar to how people feel about their home states today. The citizens put the needs of the polis above their own. You're into 13. Such strong loyalty of their own city-state divided the Greeks. They were not as a unified whole country. The lack of unity weakened Greece, making it easier to conquer. So they're setting the stage too, guys. In other words, I have absolute loyalty to my city. But what's going to happen as we go back and we think about these things, guys? Each one of these cities has loyalty to themselves. Great. Loyalty to yourself. Great, great, great. That's great until a huge country, you're going to learn the Persians, are going to come in and try to attack Greece. Well, Greece says we need to work together. Well, we're not really good at working together. We're good at doing our own little thing. We're good at having our own little rules, and we're good at sometimes fighting each other. And so that was the downfall of it. Yet, did you have awesome soldiers? Absolutely, you had awesome soldiers. You had soldiers that really prided themselves in fighting, guys. I think another thing to stress here is citizens put the needs of the polis above their own. John F. Kennedy was really famous. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, he said in a speech, right? Think bigger than myself. So you think about our American soldiers. Why they're out there fighting? It might not go well for them, but they love our country more than they love themselves. That's why they put their lives on the line, and that's why we need to step back and have respect for those who serve in the military, because they're willing to do that. But regardless, guys, we should also have that too, right? I'm supposed to, God teaches me to think bigger than myself, and how can I be a blessing to other people, my country included, to be able to do those things. It's been something that's been around for a long time. Awesome. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of Lesson 1. You got that worksheet that goes along with it. Take your times with it. I think one of the challenging questions was, I think it's number 8, who runs the city-state, guys? That's getting this right here. They're trying to teach you about the citizens and how citizens have the power to run the Greek city-states. All right, blessings on your day.